Perez has been mentioned, I'd like to thank him for his work on this rulemaking process and this rule that he is attempting to promulgate. And I do so because I was here when we took on the yield spread premium. And I remember how difficult it was to take action with the yield spread premium, which is not the same as what we're doing today, but which is quite similar with the same effect, the yield spread premium. And it seems to me that when we know that there are conflicts of interest, some of which are invidious, onerous, some of which are harmful, it would just seem to me that we would want to correct this. So I commend President Obama for his efforts to correct these conflicts and to provide small businesses and people who are trying to retire an opportunity to avoid conflicts of interest that can be harmful. But by way of edification, let me just explain to you how this can work. An investor, person with a 401k, pays an advisor some amount of money to assist and advise. The advisor is also paid by a plan or some fund that the advisor recommends to the investor. On its face, probably not a problem. But when that advisor is incentivized to recommend a fund that may be a high-risk fund by being paid a higher amount than if the advisor recommended a conservative fund, then you run into possible conflicts that can be harmful to the investor, the person who has a 401k. Secretary Perez is making an effort to try to carve out exceptions so that business can continue, but he doesn't want the people who have to depend on advice to be hurt at some point in the distant future because that advice was not given properly. And he talks about the fiduciary relationship, the responsibility of the fiduciary to be loyal, to be a person who takes the interests of the investor and places that above his personal interest or her personal interest. Now, with reference to the $17 billion, it appears that this is from 2013. 2013, that is not that long ago in my world, and $17 billion is not a small amount of money. We talk about quite regularly how we have decided that billions don't equate to large losses, but I'm not in that club. I think that $17 billion loss is quite a bit of money, and my hope is that we'll be able to remedy this circumstance. Another point, Dr. King talked about the paralysis of analysis, how we can literally take an issue and analyze it to the extent that we get nothing done. Well, this is a different version of the paralysis of analysis, the bill that we'll be reviewing, because the bill would require that DOL not act until the SEC has acted. My contention is if you want the SEC to act, allow the DOL to move forward, and as a result of moving forward, that will encourage action by the SEC. I am absolutely convinced that what we're trying to do is appropriate in terms of rulemaking. And Mr. Bullard, I've read your testimony in its entirety, and I want you to know that I compliment you on the statements that you've made. You have given us a clear picture of what happens when we have these conflicts of interest that some people call kickbacks, by the way. They are known by a good many people as kickbacks. These conflicts of interest, one of your statements over on page 14 of what I have as your report, you indicate that it is economically irrational for the advisor to be paid more to recommend an aggressive asset allocation over a conservative one. I think that's a pretty strong statement, and I commend you for making the statement. Your Your statement in its entirety is one that I enjoyed reading, and I commend you for the strong stance that you've taken. I thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to yield back my time, but I will not yield on the question of making sure that we protect small investors.
The gentleman yields back.